This is the one. This is the one where Marvel realized that they can make whatever they want because as long as their name is on it, people will see it. I mean, this was a real piece of marketing for the movie.
Ants! Ants! Ant-Man!
Ant-Man was directed by Peyton Reed after Edgar Wright stepped down from the project. It stars Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, and it's a rather low-scale heist movie, which was a genius idea, especially coming off the back of Age of Ultron, where a robot tried to throw a city at a planet to kill everyone on it. Before we get into this review, I actually want to talk about the history of this movie and the troubled production it had, because I think it's a pretty interesting story. So, in 2006, Marvel announced, that was when they first announced all these movies they were going to do. That's when they announced Iron Man, Thor, Captain America. And they announced Ant-Man alongside those movies with Edgar Wright slated to write and direct the movie. And Edgar Wright directed Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and Baby Driver. So just some of his work. Now, in 2011, they didn't prioritize Ant-Man because they wanted to prioritize the other films that we ended up getting back in the day. So in 2011, Edgar Wright and co-writer Joe Cornish had a complete Ant-Man script. And then in 2012, Edgar Wright shot test footage for the movie that he showed off at Comic-Con, and that test footage showed kind of the shrinking effect and how it would look when Ant-Man shrinks and grows. And then sometime after that, they began casting. And so they had the core cast picked out. They had Paul Rudd, Michael Douglas, Evangeline Lilly, all of them. But Marvel kept demanding rewrites on the movie, at one point just taking the script and giving it to some of their writers and just telling them to work on it. And that didn't sit well with Edgar Wright. And it ended up getting too far from what he wanted it to be. So he ended up stepping down 2 months before filming began. He said that he wanted to make a Marvel movie, but Marvel didn't want to make an Edgar Wright movie. So yeah, he ended up leaving. They did a last-minute hire of Peyton Reed to direct the movie. And Peyton Reed then directed the sequel, and he's directing Quantumania, so he's going to get to finish the trilogy. And Edgar Wright has both a story and a writing credit on Ant-Man, and a lot of the film came from his ideas. The main casting, that was Edgar Wright. The heist story, that was Edgar Wright. The way it looks when someone shrinks, that was Edgar Wright. Now, let's review this thing. So a heist movie, as I said, was such a genius idea for Ant-Man. This is one of those movies where simplicity was its best friend. I actually think that's why it works so well, is that it's super simple. Ant-Man and the Wasp got a little more complicated, and one of my main worries with Quantumania, actually really my only worry with Quantumania, is that I feel like it might be going too ambitious. Sometimes simplicity is all you need, and I think Ant-Man works because it's so simplistic. I mean, the movie's 3 acts go as follows. Scott Lang tries to steal something, it doesn't work, then they train him to steal something, then he steals something. Simple, I love it. But this is not a perfect movie, nor does it need to be. It's a pretty middle-of-the-road Marvel movie. It sits comfortably, like in the center of a lot of Marvel rankings. I know it at least does on mine. But that's not always a problem. You know, most people always like to say, well, this one wasn't my favorite. It doesn't have to be your favorite. You know, the Ant-Man movies know exactly what they want to be. They want to be just fun, goofy, light-hearted movies. These are not trying to be the next Winter Soldiers, the next Guardians of the Galaxy, the next Infinity Wars. No, they know what they want to be, and that's just fun popcorn movie. I mean, one of the posters for Ant-Man and the Wasp has them walking by popcorn. Now, the thing in Ant-Man that works best is the shrinking, and that's like the thing in an Ant-Man movie that has to be the best. Now, thankfully, they did get it right. When he shrinks, you see multiple Scott Langs varying in size, which is exactly how it was in the comics. I love that they had the idea to translate that exactly how it was. Also, the sound design when he shrinks and grows is super cool. It also adds just a layer of awesome on top of every action scene because there is limitless potential when you have a character who can go from 6 feet to that big in an instant. The fight with Falcon, super fun. The fight at the lab, super fun. I've always loved the fight in the briefcase when it's falling out of the helicopter where Yellow Jacket bumps Siri and accidentally plays Disintegration.
I'm gonna disintegrate you!
Playing Disintegration by The Cure.
And the final fight on Thomas the Tank Engine in Cassie's room is the most creative action sequence I think I've ever seen. I'm going to talk more about it later because I'm going to address one of my main issues with the film, and it involves that, so I'll get into it in a bit. But first, I want to talk about some of the characters and the cast because this movie is just wonderfully cast. It's one of the things Marvel does best. They cast every movie super well, and Paul Rudd is yet another brilliant MCU casting choice. While I don't necessarily like some of the places they took the character of Scott Lang in the sequel, I loved him in this movie. He's actually my favorite character in this movie, behind Luis, of course. And honestly, besides Yellow Jacket, I like every character in this movie. Now, Hank Pym is damn good. If the character of Hank Pym doesn't work, the movie crumbles, but luckily the character works and Michael Douglas gave it his all. I love how passionate he seems to be about these stupid movies. He doesn't have that overinflated ego that a lot of older actors have, where they think they're just above everything and there's no movie that's good enough for them. No, he just does stuff that he thinks is fun, and he gives it his all. Have you seen The American President? It has him and Annette Bening. That's a great movie. Watch it. And while you're at it, go watch The Game. It's on Netflix. It's directed by David Fincher. That shit was crazy. I loved it. Go watch it. This man came back for 3 minutes in What If and stole a whole episode. He was in 1 episode of Phineas and Ferb. He didn't need to do that, but he did it. I liked Phineas and Ferb. I just like Michael Douglas. He's a great guy. If cancel culture ever picks him as their target of the week, I will lead an armed rebellion against cancel culture. I love you, Michael Douglas. Keep doing what you're doing. So Evangeline Lilly plays Hope Van Dyne, and she is a dick in this movie, a massive dick. But the way I see it is if you have a character who's a dick, your story needs to give a very reasonable and justifiable explanation as to why that character's a dick. And if you can do that, then the character isn't a dick for no reason. They're a compelling character and it makes sense of why they're a dick. And that's the case with Hope Van Dyne. And she has very realistic reasons. I could buy anyone acting this way if all this happened to him. You know, she lost her mom. Her dad was super secretive about it. And then she had trained to be a superhero, but her dad wouldn't let her do it. Instead, he would rather put another father in harm's way. That didn't sit right with her. Also, Scott's just pretty annoying. Speaking of fathers, the creator of the Miss Marvel show knocked it out of the park when she said that family really is the heart of the MCU. And that was never more true than it is in this film. It's the heart and soul of it. I mean, the story it's about 2 fathers and their daughters. That's the heart of the movie. And I love that by the end of the film, Scott's relationship with his ex-wife and her new boyfriend is seen as a positive one. It's not seen as toxic. They all get along. They all care for each other at the end. And that's also one of my favorite parts about Ant-Man and the Wasp, is that relationship. I love that this movie shows him becoming Ant-Man. They show his training sessions. They show him learning with the ants. And the skills come back into play. They teach him how to jump through a keyhole in a door, and then later on, you really do get to see him become a superhero throughout the course of the movie, and I like when superhero movies show the character becoming a superhero. But the movie's just Iron Man. The movie borrows so much from Iron Man that it could be considered plagiarism. Although the scripts were in development at the same time and Marvel was still getting their bearings and they weren't quite as ballsy yet, so they just threw 2 movies into development that followed the same template that was set by Richard Donner's Superman, so I guess that would explain why they're pretty much the same movie. The villain's just the hero but evil, and Yellow Jacket is not a good villain. Marvel screwed the pooch on the villain again. They still were dealing with their villain problem at the time, something that I thought they had ironed out in Phase 3, but seems to be back in Phase 4 for some reason. Anyway, physics. Let's discuss those. The science in your movie does not have to make sense. It just has to be consistent, and the audience will be none the wiser. But if you tell your audience in one scene that someone who shrinks to the size of an ant retains the same mass, but then later scenes show them on someone's shoulder or riding an ant, but then the last scene of the movie shows someone get hit by a train 10 times their size and it does no damage, people will start to get confused and the audience will begin to wonder what the rules of this world really are. So either keep the science consistent or don't make your movie rely so heavily on science if you aren't willing to thoroughly and clearly explain it. Also, I guess Janet Van Dyne's just the biggest moron in the universe because it's really easy to get out of the quantum realm. I mean, really easy. Now, I did not see this movie in theaters because I expected it to suck. Trailers never really won me over. I finally watched it while I was, preparing for Civil War back in 2016, and I was wrong. It is a fun movie, and that's all it needs to be. I am going to give Ant-Man a B. Alright, real quick, I am going to be taking a short break from the reviews for a couple weeks. I'm just going to keep reviewing What If episodes and anything else that comes out in the meantime. I do have a Phase 2 film ranking for you guys that's coming out sometime after this. Not exactly sure what day I have written down, but I will be hopping back into the reviews soon. It's just going to be a few weeks. But there's my review for Ant-Man. What did you guys think of the movie? Let me know down in the comments below. Also leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.